Hello. Uh, Good afternoon, colleagues. Again, we have a press conference of the African Union Commission delegates right after this. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lila.
My name is Modalet.
Can I take a picture with your name for archive? It's for archive. So everybody that's gonna talk, I need the...
Only I will be moderating, and then the director will only one speaker.
Only one person.
Yeah.
But can I take a picture with you and your name?
Yes. But don't mind this one. This is African Union Commission.
Yeah.
On the name.
You're right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So what is it?
Bu birbirine vururlar.
Olur 40. Ona göre... Ha? Baba. Good afternoon, colleagues. On behalf of the African Union Commission, Information and Communication Directorate, I would like to thank you for joining us for this important press conference where we gather to discuss the African Union's commitment and contribution at COP29. As you may be aware, the African Union, representing collective voice of 55 member states, stands at the forefront of advocating for sustainable development, climate resilience, and just transition strategies tailored to our unique and circumstance. Today, we are privileged to hear from the head of the African Union Commission delegation at COP29, and who is also the Director for Sustainable Environment, Blue Economy at the African Union Commission, Mr. Hassan Niambe. He will shed light on the AU strategies, priorities, and the ongoing initiatives at the collaborative efforts aimed at addressing climate change, as well as the support that aligns with the goals of the Paris Agreement. After his remarks, we will take a few questions and answer session. Now I will invite the Director Hassan for his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and let me join my colleague to also appreciate your coming, and just to inform you that as the African Union, we are actually deeply concerned about the impact of climate change on the continent, and we have actually witnessed an increase in terms of disasters which are related to climate or weather on the continent, as well as the fact that their duration tend to be longer. For example, in the past we used to have droughts which used to last like a year or two before we get years of, should I say, abundant rainfall. But of late, we realize that there are times when a drought lasts for 5 years or even more, which makes it very difficult for communities to survive. But also on top of that, we have also noticed that, for example, member states do not get an opportunity to recover from one disaster after the other, because there's not enough time between, should I say, those disasters for them to be able to recuperate or at least to reconstruct before another one hits. So those are some of the challenges that actually we face. And also, it's important to also give a context in terms of agriculture, because you find that most of our production is actually in the hands of small-scale farmers, and those small-scale farmers actually do not have sufficient resources to be able to invest in the agricultural projects so that they can cushion themselves from the impact of climate change. You know, and here I'm talking about, for example, investments such as those for irrigation, which commercial farmers, for example, or large-scale farmers can actually be able to afford. So, given all these challenges, to us, our message here is very clear. We are not here to ask for aid. We are here to ask for developed countries to honor their obligation. That's all we are asking for. And this COP actually has put emphasis on issues of finance, and we feel it's rightly so, especially from an African perspective, because we have all the frameworks, we have got all the necessary means to be able to implement climate actions. But the major challenge actually is funding. And if you have got funding, you can be able to unlock technology, you can be able to build capacity, you can be able to do anything. But that's where the challenge is. So the funding that is supposed to help us is not there. And I think that's the major focus of our intervention here. It is also important to underscore the fact that if you look at developed countries, they've had enough time to be able to develop using fossil fuel, using all other means that today we are saying they are not appropriate. So as a continent, we are willing to transition to low carbon development. We are willing to forfeit going the polluting path so that we can be able to contribute to the global solution, because there's only one planet where we all live. However, for us to do that, we need finance to be able to invest in new technologies, to be able to transition to low carbon development or green development, whichever term you want to use. So basically, Africa is not opposed to cutting down greenhouse emissions, but all we are saying is that we need the means to be able to do so. And the other point is that adaptation has always been our priority, more so because we do not have historic responsibility for climate change. And in fact, we are responding to the impact of climate change. And as such, to us, adaptation remains a priority, and therefore it's why we are calling upon developed countries to honor their pledges as well as their obligation, so that they can also improve on the provision of adaptation finance. There are those who are arguing that public finance is not enough. Yes, we agree to that, but the bulk of the funding should come from public, should I say, means. And then in addition to that, we also welcome investments, because in Africa, we have got what it takes to be able to contribute to the global solution on climate change. For example, if you look at critical green minerals, such as cobalt or lithium and nickel, you name them, they are actually abundant in Africa. So there are opportunities there, again, to invest so that we can be able to embark on green technologies, whether be it clean mobility or electric vehicles. We have what it takes to be able to contribute to that, as long as there are investments. So basically, that's, in a nutshell, that's what I can say for now, and I would welcome questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. I now open the floor for question and answer session. Please, when you ask your question, introduce yourself and your media house as well. Okay, we start from there.
Thank you very much. My name is Matilda. I'm a journalist from Kenya. I work for the Standard Group. So is the AU prepared to walk away from this COP without a deal if the outcomes do not sufficiently address African climate development priorities, or will it just accept a symbolic commitment without substance? And then my second question is about illegal and unreported, unregulated fishing. Fishing is depleting African marine resources in Africa. Is this something you are addressing in COP, and what is your global call for action? Thank you.
Director, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for that. Africa believes in multilateralism. Giving up, I don't think it's an option. The best is to battle it out, because the issue that if you are not at the table, people will eat you in your absence. Therefore, it's important that we continue to engage as a continent until such time that we are able to find an amicable solution. And on IUU fishing, yes, it's a concern to the continent, especially for coastal states. They are actually very concerned, and at times some of these vessels which fish illegally come from outside, and that's actually a major problem. And it's for that reason that we have been engaged as a continental body with member states to try and find solutions. For example, last year, in fact, we had a policy brief about it, which we produced, but also some guidelines on how member states can go about dealing with that. However, what we are thinking about is actually to come up with a continental mechanism for sharing intelligence and surveillance, so that it's easier for one country to notify another if they spot, for example, a vessel that is fishing illegally, or a vessel using VMS, for example. So there are issues that we are trying to contain. Thank you very much.
Okay. On this side.
Thank you very much. My name is Vivian Chime. I work with Climate Home News. So I want to ask, what does Africa really want? Because a week before this conference, the Africa Energy Week was organized in Cape Town, South Africa, and some African countries that were pushing for oil and gas investments. And even at this COP, we've also seen some African countries pushing for oil and gas investments. But then Africa is also here asking for finance, to transition. So exactly what does Africa want, and how would you address this? Thank you.
Thank you, Director Nyambe. My name is Henry Kronk. I cover carbon markets for a company called Opus, which is part of Dow Jones. I wanted to ask you, Africa is a huge source of carbon emissions reductions and removals. And we have really not seen a lot of deals happening at this COP. How do you feel about the current state of international carbon markets and folks engaging with your member states? And what would you like to see from Article 6 negotiations?
Sorry, which media, please? Your media house? Your media house, please.
Opus, Dow Jones.
Okay. One more question.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Martha. Okay, I'm too short whether I stand or not. Okay.
No, speak loudly.
Yeah, okay, no worries. My name is Martha Bakala. I wanted to ask Mr. Nyambe, because this is the 29th year now we are discussing, and as much as you say we are not here for looking for charity, we're operating as powerless, and someone had mentioned here it's a huge continent. So I wanted to ask, number one, when is the African Union going to be a party to the Paris Agreement so that it has also the political muscle in negotiating? Because what the AGN doing right now is a technical capacity. So that is number one. Number two is, as an African, as a Black African woman coming from Ethiopia, I wonder if it is time for us to take bold steps. For instance, there is the EU CBAM. Is Africa preparing itself, for instance, not to trade under CBAM, rather to take some retaliatory trade retaliation against the EU? The same with the plundering, the critical minerals that you are talking about. Countries are signing agreements left, right, and center on the continuation of this plundering. What is the African Union preparing to do about that? Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Nyambe, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. On the issue of investments in gas or oil or whichever source of energy that we are looking at, the point is that it would be very unfair for Africa to be told today to abandon, for example, the utilization of gas for energy and then suddenly switch, for example, to hydro energy or renewable energy. And it's for that reason why we continue to say that we need a just transition. So during this just transition period, we are supposed to continue using whatever we have, so that in that process we are also transforming our economies to go for low carbon development, or should I say renewable energy. It's not something that you can do overnight, and it's very costly. So it's why we have to continue at least to utilize whatever resources we have. In Europe, for example, if you look at what happened after the war in Eastern Europe, some of the countries, in fact, went back to coal, because it was an emergency. So I think it would be very unfair for Africa to be told that today, suddenly you have to stop, because it takes time, it takes resources to be able to do that. And you have to build infrastructure for that. So, like I indicated before, we are willing to take that path, but at least there should be means to be able to transition. On the issue of carbon markets, yes, the continent indeed is a significant sink, and we have got a lot of opportunities, be it in terms of renewable energy and all these, including forests or landscapes and whatever. So there are a lot of opportunities there. However, the challenge for Africa has been the prices for carbon. They have not been attractive, and I think that has been a concern for communities, for governments. You find that maybe the price of carbon in Europe and Africa, if you compare, there's no comparison. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have been facing. And then for those countries who have tried, we realize that local communities have been crying out because somehow they were kind of swindled out. They did not benefit, especially that in most of Africa, we are looking at carbon, trading from forests as an example. So you find that a big piece of land where the community has been dependent on suddenly is given to somebody else, and the community did not get a penny out of it, or they don't have the capacity to negotiate. So there are also social issues that have been quite a challenge. The other point has been legislation, because this is a new area. Most countries do not have the right legislation, and they do not have the capacity even to be able to assess, should I say, the amount of carbon that they are able to offset. So basically, there are a lot of factors that have been serving as constraints to the continent, and it's for that reason that this year we had the first African carbon market, African conference on carbon markets, which we held, I think it was like around July or so. And that culminated into the development of an action plan for the continent to be able to guide member states on how they can actually reap benefits from the carbon markets. On the issue of AU or African Union becoming a party to the UNFCCC, that's a process, and I cannot tell you as to when that will happen or if at all it will happen. That's the prerogative of member states, because they need to surrender part of their sovereignty to be able to do that. And then on the issue of, should I say, the carbon mechanisms that are being put in place by the EU, especially for some of the imports that are coming from Africa, be it aluminium and so forth. Yes, there's a concern there by the continent, because we feel that we did not engage per se adequately with the EU. EU is our strategic partner. We relate quite a lot in a number of areas, be it in trade, in negotiations, in everything. So negotiations are ongoing to try and deal with those kind of issues, because our argument is that we cannot be able just to switch immediately. We need enough time, and as a strategic partner, they should also be able to help some of those countries that are exporting, be it cement or whatever product they are looking at, so that they can build capacity over time. And they are talking of, I think it was 3 years, 5 years, and another 5 years, about 13 years. So we are hoping that during this transition period, the issues will be resolved, and more countries will be encouraged also to go for green production, I submit.
Let us take the final round of questions. Introduce your media house, please.
Thank you. Zia Weiser from Politico. I wanted to get back to the finance question, and the EU has started discussing internally whether it could provide public money of 200 to 300 as part of that core target, and I'm wondering if that would be a level that would be acceptable to you.
Please, can you repeat loudly?
Yeah, sorry. I'm wondering if if we're talking about a target, what kind of level would be acceptable for you, and if something what the EU is discussing, like 200 to 300 billion for a core public funding target, would be a good foundation for these discussions here. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lily Sinjero from Nation Media Group in Kenya. Africa Union is now a permanent member of the G20, the summit that is currently happening in Rio. And with COP29 coinciding with that summit, what we saw last night is a signal from them saying that we cannot leave BAKU without a successful climate finance goal. What does AU, or what would the AU want to see coming out from Rio for this COP? Was that signal strong enough?
Okay, the last question over there. Please introduce your media house.
Hello, I'm a professor from the University of Maine in the US. My question is, what is the AU's approach to climate displacement, and what do they hope out of this COP?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, what is the AU's approach to climate displacement, climate migration, and what do they hope out of this COP?
Sir, we didn't get your question, please. Can you?
The question is about climate displacement, people who are displaced because of climate disasters, and what do they hope from
displacement?
COP? Yes.
Director, you have the floor.
Thank you. In terms of our target actually for finance is actually informed by the assessments that have been carried out. We believe that science is the best basis for us to be able to argue our case. And picking figures from nowhere, it will not help, because if today suddenly we say we need, for example, $20 trillion, it will not make sense unless it's informed by a study. So basically for Africa, we have been sticking to what we have been saying all along, which is 1.3 trillion for the world. But of course, we are aware that the EU is talking between 200 and 300 billion. But in addition to that, they are not coming out clearly, because if you are negotiating and somebody tells you this is where I stand, it's easier for you to maneuver. But if they are silent with figures, it makes it even more complicated. But of course, we trust that at some stage, they will also come out clearly so that their figures are known, and then maybe people can find a compromise somewhere. And that's the interesting part about negotiations. On G20, yes, G20, they have expressed themselves in terms of their wish or what they would want to see. But as you are aware, G20 statements are not binding on, should I say, it's an expression of, how do I put it, of an intention. But they cannot force other countries because they are sovereign countries and they come here to negotiate as sovereign countries. So yes, they uttered a statement of goodwill, but it's up to the countries who are negotiating here at the end of the day to decide what they want to see put forward for the globe. But on the issue of displacement, yes, in fact, disasters are causing havoc on the continent. And, you know, if we look at 2021 and 2022, we realize that in Africa, based on the studies, the losses, economic losses amount to 8.5 million US dollars. And that is too much for our continent. And also the displacement is also resulting in conflicts. You know, for example, if one community moves from A to point B, in point B they end up clashing with the local or the host communities there. So there are a lot of challenges actually, apart from the fact that where they move to, sometimes there are not enough facilities like schools, you know, sanitary issues, and so basically there are a lot of problems that we are facing on the continent. And we are working with the IMO as well as other partners actually to try and address that. And talking about disasters also, we have got a number of programs that we have actually put in place. Some are targeting the Sahel region. For those who know Africa, that's one of the troubled regions on the continent. But in addition to that, we have also the Urban Resilience Program that we have actually developed in collaboration with the UN Habitat as well as UNDP. And finally, we have got the multi-hazard early warning system and early action that we have put in place to be able at least to provide alerts to countries when there are looming disasters. And there, again, we enjoy the support of a couple of countries such as Italy, Sweden, Denmark. We have the EU also supporting us there. We have got UNDP, we have UNDRR, CIMA Foundation. So basically there are a lot of partners. And if you look at early warning for all, which was pronounced by the UN Secretary General, to us that came after we have already established the multi-hazard early warning system. And therefore this multi-hazard early warning system for us is the vehicle for early warning for all, as far as its implementation is concerned on the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyambe. If you have a final word, I can give you 1 minute so that we'll wrap up our press conference.
Thank you. Just to say that we appreciate your coming, and as the African Union Commission, we are always available. People can engage in case you need additional information. We also have a pavilion here where people can pass by and get information. So otherwise, we are grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyambe. Thank you very much, colleagues. We have come to the end of our press conference today. Like Mr. Director said, should you need any interview, one-on-one interview, we're available until the end of the COP. Have a good day. Thank you.